Welcome to the Yinning at Life podcast. I am your host, Kimberley Roberts of SolefulYin, and I'm here to dish out all things related to traditional Chinese medicine, yin yoga, and of course, mindset shifts and hacks. So welcome to this episode. I'm going to dive right in. I want to talk about this conversation that I had with my patient in my reflexology practice. Now, she's like totally okay with me talking about this. I'm not giving out any names or anything like that, but I was talking to her about it and she's like, that would make a really good podcast episode, haha. And I was like, actually, it kind of would. And she was like, yeah, no, go for it. I was like, cool, okay. So I coined this, are you all in? So we're in a new year. It's like we're 11 days into it. And I'm running this 30-day challenge on my app called the Focus 30 Challenge. And like most people would think, a challenge is like, okay, well, I do this certain thing for 30 days and blah, 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 and I get these results. And I'll probably quit halfway into it. And so this Focus 30 Challenge is a lot different. This is about creating what I consider to be the 4 pillars in your life. So willpower, resilience, trust, and courage. Because without those 4 elements, it's going to be really hard for you to create an incredible life and incredible health. So this 30-day challenge, we're now like 11 days into it. And a lot of my students who signed up are still doing it. And it's cool because I get to, look from behind the scenes and I see that they're tracking and stuff like that. And I'm like, cool, like people are doing it. But of course, and as I expected, people dropped off already. And I was telling my patient that the other day because we were talking about the challenge and she was like, so how many people are still doing it? And I was like, well, there's a few that, they're there, but they're not really doing it. And she's like, well, didn't you expect that? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, we're not even 2 full weeks into it and people have already given up. And yet some of them are still going. And I said, that's kind of the reality is like, people think they're all in the beginning of something, but then, shit happens or they get distracted by something or whatever the case is. And they just give up. And they end up just going back to their old ways. And when I started this challenge, I had said that this is the challenge that you need, and this is the change that you desire, that you want, right? Because here's the thing, like, we all need things, but where it becomes really important is in the want, because the want is the desire. So what do you desire for yourself? And so my patient, I had asked her that same question. I'm like, yeah, I know what you need, but what do you want? Because there's a difference. And she's like, I don't understand what the difference is. And I'm like, well, need comes out of a basic necessity to have things, right? More from like a survival type of mode. But I said, when you want something, there's a desire behind it. Like it's a different energy that you're putting out. And it's not like need can be a very desperate inspiration, right? And you can be motivated by need very easily, but it can also be very, like if you put a Y at the end of that word, what is that? It's called needy, right? And so need often comes from a lack mentality. So a scarcity mindset, a fear mindset, right? And we know in Chinese medicine that our organs hold emotions and that our kidneys are what hold the fear. But what also our kidneys hold is willpower. And so this whole Focus 30 challenge that I started up about these 4 pillars was really about from a Chinese medicine perspective of how can we bring willpower into our kidneys? And I was telling this to my patient. I'm like, well, then how can you bring in resilience into your liver? How can you bring in trust into your spleen and courage into your lungs, right? Like, how can you do all of that? So this challenge was more about the challenge that you need in terms of the need part is needing to release the emotions that are holding you back and preventing you from fulfilling the desires that you want. And then the change is the actual thing that you desire. Like, what do you want for your health? What do you want for your life? Like, are you all in for that? Because the reality is, nobody is going to come and save you and do that work for you. Like, you have to do that work yourself. That is your own journey. And, the person that might be with you, a partner, a spouse, a family relative, whatever, like they're on their own journey, trying to figure out their own thing. And you're here to figure out your own thing. You don't have time to be figuring out someone else's thing. This podcast episode is sponsored by the Everything Monthly Unlimited plan. Let me ask you, are you ready to step into your best health? Are you ready to feel empowered when you look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I love who I am and I love how I feel in my body. Are you looking to feel calm and grounded in your thoughts? Are you looking to feel relaxed and open and spacious in your body? Are you looking to sleep well and have tons of energy? Then say yes to you and say yes to the monthly unlimited everything plan. For less than $2 a day, you can literally have all the tools that you need to have vibrant organ health, to have energy through the roof, to have a calm, composed, in control mind, all at your fingertips. Say yes to you. You are so worthy of having the most vibrant health and the best life. So come and join us on the SolefulYin app. Like, we're all on a journey and everybody is in a different place on that journey. But what I was trying to explain to my patient was that when these people started, like when my students started this challenge, everybody was so gung-ho about like, yeah, I want the willpower and I want the trust and I want the resilience and I want the courage because I know that that's how I'm going to make things happen in my health and that's how I'm going to, make things happen with my life. But what happens when we start to do something different? So this challenge is different. It's different for a lot of people. It's putting people into situations where they're being triggered by their emotions and they're having to, look underneath the carpet to see what they've been sweeping underneath there all this time. And this challenge is about changing people in a way that is going to be better for them in the long run. But when we get triggered and when we're doing things that are different than what we're used to, meaning what our brain is used to, we get to a point where we don't like the discomfort of all that change. And so it's easier in those moments where we have that literal weak moment where we're like, yeah, I just can't do this anymore. What was I thinking? This was the stupidest idea I ever had. This isn't going to work anyway. And we talk ourselves out of whatever it is that we desire. And the thing is that I know within you that there is a part of you, a deep part of you that knows, that truly knows you are capable of having more, of doing more, of being more in this world. But, and it's a big but here, the fear that you're holding in your kidneys, the resistance that you're holding in your liver, the worry that you're holding in your spleen, and the lack of courage that you're holding in your lungs. All of that is preventing you from having more, of doing more, of being more. And the more you keep yourself stuck in those energies, I call them like lower vibrational energies because they're not bad. Just like feeling happy is not a good emotion. It's just an emotion in Chinese medicine. That's all it is. Emotions are just indicators of where we're at with our energy and our emotions and what we might need to change so that we don't end up with physical disease that we don't want. And because our organs hold emotions, this whole challenge was about helping people to tap into their potential and their passion and live a completely fulfilled life, even though emotions like fear and anger and worry and sadness are going to come up, because that is part of our human experience. And you're not going to go through life like it's roses and lollipops 365. That is just not possible. You are meant to have, and I say this all the time, you are meant to have a broad spectrum of emotions because you're human. And to tell yourself that it's bad to be angry or that it's now been too long that you've been grieving. No, it's just that's where you're at right in this moment. But what you have to ask yourself in those moments when you are in those lower vibrational emotions is, well, why? Like, why am I feeling like that? And this is what's happening with some of my students now in the challenge. Some of them got to a point where some of those lower vibrational emotions were coming up and they were like, oh, no, 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 don't like this, can't handle it, so shove it back down under the carpet, and then they give up. And then others are like, oh, this is coming up. This emotion's coming up again. Oh, I'm irritated again? What do you mean again? And then they're going, why? Why am I so irritated? Or why does this irritate me? Or why does this make me scared? Like they're starting to contemplate. They're reflecting. They're asking questions instead of deviating to the typical response that your mind has been used to, which is just to give up and to go back to where you were. And even if going back to where you were was suffering and you were miserable, it was still what your mind was used to. And that's the thing. Your mind likes predictability. So at the beginning of a challenge, it's so new. At the beginning of anything new that you're doing, it's new. So your mind hasn't had an opportunity to really dissect it yet. But a few days in, all of a sudden your mind goes, wait a minute, we're doing something different. I don't like it. This sucks. This just really doesn't, I don't like it. I don't want this anymore. I want to go back to knowing how I was feeling before. Like at least I knew what it was like. And that's how it rolls, which is a reason why I am not a big believer of New Year's resolutions. Because when we make all these resolutions for ourselves. We're going to resolve to do this. We're going to resolve to do that. To me, the word resolve has a really negative connotation to it. And that's just my interpretation. That doesn't mean that somebody else might think resolutions, sometimes those really work for some people. For me, no, it's about resolving, which means I have to fix something, which means something is broken. I'm not broken. I'm a human being living in a human experience in this thing called life. And within that, I'm going to have lessons that I'm going to have to learn. And that's okay. That's what I'm here for. This is why we're all here, is to experience life and contrast so we can gain clarity. But that requires that we have to make some changes and we have to be challenged and we have to keep going and we have to be all in. Because if we're 1 foot in and then all of a sudden it's 1 foot out and then 1 foot back in and 1 foot back out, what kind of energy is that you're putting out into the world? The universe is going, wait a minute, she's in. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, now she's out. Oh, she's back in. Oh, she's back out. Like, what the heck do I do with that? I don't know. So the universe just keeps getting these bounced back energies from you and sends you back more of the same. And that is not the way to heal, nor is it the way to grow. And yeah, healing sometimes sucks. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable. But you know what? As they say in yoga, no mud, no lotus. Sometimes life gets muddy. It gets sticky and it gets stinky and it gets challenging. But we don't grow if we don't challenge ourselves. This is why I use yin yoga as my tool. It is my biggest tool. That and breath work and meditation, I'd say, are like my 3 top tools of what I use to help me when I'm in challenging moments. Where it's like my mind is going, no, 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 we're not going to do that. This is too scary. We can't handle it. Bad case scenario is going to come in. And I use the practice to turn that all around because there is power in the pause. And when you pause in a yin pose, whether it's like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, when you pause in meditation, when you focus on your breath, there's clarity that can come up with that. And there is nothing more powerful for you to have in this world than clarity. It's okay to have contrast. Contrast is good. People often think contrast is a bad thing. No, contrast means it's showing you what you don't want. It's how you handle the contrast that makes the difference. So when something comes up and you're like, I don't like that, like it happens with me and my students all the time, or in my reflexology practice, you know, someone will say, I don't like that. And I'm like, well, what do you like? Well, I don't like that. That's not what I asked you. And they'll be like, well, I don't want da 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 da. And I'm like, I know you don't want da 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 da, but what do you want? Can you answer me that question? And then they're kind of like the deer in the headlight for a moment thinking, oh, what do I want? And sometimes there's no answer right away. They have to think about it, and that's okay. But you see, the contrast gives you the opportunity to say, okay, well, I know I don't want this, but flip it around. What do you want? And that's the second part. People don't do that part. They just keep focusing on what they don't want. And guess what? They just get more of what they don't want because that's how energy works. And that's how we get emotions that get stuck and trapped in our organs that create disease. And in Chinese medicine, they believe that the root of all physical disease starts with emotional imbalance. So it all starts with our emotions. And where does that start from? Our thoughts. So we have thoughts, and the thoughts create feelings. We start to feel a certain way, and then an emotion comes up from that. And we have options at that point. Yes, there's always options, people. We have options. We can go, okay, I'm feeling scared right now. And I can start to question why. I can start to look for the clues, the answers. Or I can just go, you know what? Yeah, I'm scared. And I keep focusing on the fact that I'm scared. And I just keep thinking that, oh my God, like I'm scared. And now this is going to happen and that's going to happen and a big snowball effect. And guess what? What's the energy that we put out into the world then? We're scared. So guess what we get back? More things to be scared of. Whereas when we acknowledge, okay, I'm scared. That's the first piece, the awareness, I'm scared. Second piece is ask, why? Why am I scared? Okay. Get some answers from there. And then we have a choice at that point. And it's a really important choice. We can either acknowledge, process, and say, you know what? I know I'm feeling scared and this is the reason. I don't really need to be really scared about that. I can let that go. And we release the emotion. Or we stay in the zone of continuing to be scared and allowing that cycle to grow and grow and get bigger and bigger. And then the emotion never releases from the organ. And eventually, as that compounds, as that emotion compounds in our body, it starts to manifest physical disease. And from there, it trickles back to more emotional dis-ease. And you see from there, it trickles back to more physical disease. And it just becomes this vicious cycle that you're in until you go back to the root. What is the root? Processing and releasing the emotion. I can guarantee you, whatever emotion you have, it doesn't last forever. It eventually will go. There's just a brief moment in time where it's going to be uncomfortable, where you're going to have to challenge yourself. Because when you do challenge yourself, this is where you're going to see the growth. This is where you're going to see the change. This is where you're going to experience the impact of what it is that you desire. But you've got to be all in to do it. So what I'm going to leave you with is this question. Are you all in with your health? Are you all in both feet? Firmly grounded in the earth? Because if you are, then I'll tell you that there is no stopping you from having everything that you desire, from doing everything that you want, and to being everything and everyone that you could possibly be in this world. That is the energy that I want for you. That unshakable, unstoppable, grounded energy, not the rudderless sailboat being tossed about. I want you grounded, calm, AF. This is the energy I want for you. So are you all in? Thanks so much for pressing play on today's episode. I look forward to being here for the next one. Namaste.